Lots of users use Microsoft Excel to track and manage the information. If you already have Microsoft 365 subscription, why don't you use Microsoft Lists? Microsoft Lists actually provides you more flexibility and they are more secure and simpler to use. You can manage the information and share the information with your colleagues or third-party vendors in a secure and simple way. Let's go check it out how to use Microsoft Lists. Now, in order to go to Microsoft Lists, what we need to do is actually browse to office.com. Once you are on office.com, then we click on the app launcher. From the app launcher, you will find lists under apps. If you don't find lists under app, you can click on explore all your apps where you will find a list app. Once you find list app, then we click on list app to open Microsoft Lists. Now on the Microsoft Lists page, you will see all other lists that you have previously worked on, or if you have actually created other lists, or if someone else has actually shared those lists with you. So all those lists are actually coming under your recent list section. On the top right side, you can filter it down to all recent lists, which is the lists you created, you worked on, or perhaps someone else shared. But if you click on the filter, you can also filter it to the recent list that you specifically have created. You can create lists through the Microsoft Lists portal by clicking on the new list button, or you can also create lists through Microsoft Teams. When you are in Microsoft Teams, you can actually create lists in particular channels. So for example, I have this Microsoft Teams and General is the standard channel that I have. And in order to add lists as a tab or to use Microsoft Lists, I can basically add list as a tab. So I click on the plus button and within the search, I search for lists. And once you find list, I click on the lists, and then once this is added, I'm going to click on save. So when I click on save, it actually adds the list as a tab in my channel, and then I can click on create a list, and I can create a list in this channel, which is a Microsoft Teams channels. Let's go back to the Microsoft Lists portal. And let's see what else we can actually do from there. Also create a list in Microsoft Team channels through this portal as well, which we will have a look in a minute. All right. But before we start on creating a list, let's see what else is there in this portal. All right. So on this list, I can actually hover over my mouse and I can click on this little star button to make this list as a favorite list. Or I can also click on this little menu, which is 3 dots, which you can see from there as well. So once you click on the 3 dots, I get an option to basically manage settings for the list, where I can change the name of the list, I can change the color, and I can change the icon for the list, and I can even delete the list. Once I'm happy, I click save, and the information is updated. If you want to share this list with someone, you can click on the share option as well from these little dots. Now this list is basically coming from a SharePoint site, which is TBTIT team. So if I click on the share button, I can basically see the sharing settings, and whatever settings or changes I apply to this list will basically be reflected in the SharePoint site as well. So when I talk about making changes, I'm talking about opening this list, and if I want to basically add other columns or change the data, all these changes will be reflected in the list in my SharePoint site. As you can see, the URL is basically a site URL, which is TBTITT. Okay, so let's go back. Now to create a new list, we'll click on the new list icon. You can create a list as a blank list. You can create it from an existing list, which means when you click on from existing list, this will basically ask you options to select a site or a channel or a list which you want to use as a basis to create this list. This could be handy if you want to basically create a similar list which is already being used somewhere, so that you don't have to manually create all the columns and everything for that. You can also create a list from an Excel file. So if you already have an Excel file with all the columns and the data, you can actually use this option where you click on from Excel and then you simply upload your Excel file. Or if you have your Excel file under your documents or files, you can basically select the location and select the file, and then it will create a list for you. You can use to create a list from CSV file as well, which is similar to the Excel option. If you are not sure what columns to create, and if you are after some specific lists to create, you can also use these templates which Microsoft has provided. So if you are running a project and wants to create a list to track all the issues and within your team, you can actually look at using this list. So when you click on issue tracker, you can see that all of these columns are basically created automatically for you by Microsoft. And that's a very good number of columns which has been created, basically covering everything for issue tracking. And that's the sample data on how this list will actually look. When you create using these templates, obviously then you have to click on use template. The list will be created, but you won't get all the sample data, only the columns will be created. So if I go back, and then there are a number of other templates which you can actually play with or perhaps use it. There is the employee onboarding, there is event itinerary. If you are organizing any important events in your organization, you can use that as well. In our case, we want to create or start from a blank list so that we know what other options are there, what other column types are there. So I'm just going to click on the blank list to create our list. I'm going to create a supplier list and want to capture some information about the suppliers. So let's just say I want to know about the supplier status, whether the supplier is onboarded into our system, and what's the other values and status columns that we can actually capture about supplier. So let's just put a description as well, and I'm going to put it as a green color, and I'm going to use one of these icons. Let's just say bank, and I want to keep it to my list, which is it's going to actually create this list in my personal storage. So nobody will have access to this list unless I start sharing this list. But if you are creating this list, you can actually select one of the team sites or SharePoint sites where all the group members of that site or a team's channel can actually have access to this list. It's up to you where you want to create the list. If you're going to share it or working with a group, then and if you already have a team channel, then perhaps using a team channel would be a wiser choice, so that everyone within that team channel group can actually collaborate on this list. But if you want to create something just for yourself and you want to track something, then obviously you can just create the list under my list, which means it's actually going to create it under your personal storage, and you can choose who you want to share with. So I'm going to select my list and click create. So once I do that, obviously it's going to create a list, and our list is now created. Within this list, it has given me only one title, but I want to create more columns or metadata to capture the information about supplier status. First thing I'm going to do, that I'm going to actually change the name of this column so that it actually makes sense for supplier type of a list. So I'm going to call this column a supplier name. where I will be entering the supplier's company name, for example. The next column I want to create is onboarded, right? I'm trying to use all the columns so that with different column types, so that you get an idea about what sort of options we have when coming to creating all of these column types. So onboarded could be a yes no column, and I'm just going to say onboarded question mark perhaps, and the default value could be no. You can select more options, and if you want to make this a mandatory column, you can toggle this button to yes or no, but I'm going to keep it non-mandatory and click save. Then I'm going to create another column, which could be a person, if someone has verified this supplier. So that could be a person column. This could be our internal employee within the organization, where they do the verification. So I'll say verify, could be verified by, and that could be a person or group. You can select to show profile photos, or you can keep it no. And again, under more options, you can select if you want to allow multiple selections. For example, if you have multiple users verifying this, or you can make this column mandatory, or you can enforce unique values. But unique values doesn't make sense because one person could be verifying different suppliers. So I'm just going to select all the default values and I'm going to click save. The third type of column, I'll be creating a date and time column, right? And this is the date when the supplier has been verified. So I'm just going to call it date verified, right? This is a date and time column, and I don't want to include the time. I want to keep the friendly format, and the default value, I'm just going to say none because I want the users to select this information. And under more options, definitely you can make this column mandatory or enforce unique values. So I'm just going to keep the defaults and I'm going to click save so that we have our date verified. Now, the other type of column I'm going to use is the verification percentage. We probably want to create a nice looking percentage or bar, right? So that it's visually very good looking. So let's just say and we need to create a number column. We click next and I'll say verification percentage means how far are we into the verification process, right? And that would be a number, and I'm going to use a percentage for this, and I'm going to click save, right? The last column I'm going to create is a status column, which could be a choice type column where we have multiple sort of values. So I'm just going to call it status, and this is a choice column, so I'm going to keep it choice. Now the first choice could be this is under review, for example, right? The second one could be it could be that it's actually pending verification, for example, right? It's still going through the verification process and it's pending verification, right? And the third choice could be approved. You can add more choices as well. If you want to change the color of these choices, you can click on this little palette and you can choose the color that you want, right? Doing that, you can basically select different kind of values for these columns. Okay, we don't want to give the option to add any manual values, and again, under more options, you have whether you want to display this column as a drop down or radio buttons, or you want to allow multiple selections, or perhaps enforce unique values, right? But we're just going to keep it like that, and I'm going to click save. Now we have created our columns. It's time to add some items to this. Obviously we need some information, right? Now to add the supplier information, we can click on add new item, which then opens up a form for us to fill in. So I'm just going to provide a supplier name. Let's just say it's XYZ Pty Ltd. Supplier is onboarded. No, so we leave it blank. It's not verified yet. And the verification process, well, if it's not onboarded, we can't start the verification process. So let's just say it's under review for now, right? We click save and then we click add new item again, and this is a new supplier, and this time we can say that this person is onboarded. The verification is about 30%, and we can say it's pending verification, right? And then we click on save. So I'm going to add some more data to it so that it actually makes sense. So I've added some more data to this and it's now starting to make sense. Now we have done that. Let's try to make some formatting, right? At 50%, 100%, it doesn't look really great. So let's just do some visual upgrades on our list, right? So I'm going to click on the verification column and then I'm going to click on column settings. From column settings, I'm going to then click on format this column. Now under format this column, I have a couple of options. I can even use conditional formatting where I can specify a rule that, whenever the value of this column is something, then change the color to that value. But this is a verification column, which is a percentage, and using the data bars would be really good. So once I select the data bars and I click save, so once you save and reload, you will see that it actually creates all these little bars. So more the value, it basically tries to go up and down. So this is visually really good. And we have all these check boxes, which is yes and no under this column. The other things you can do with this is you can basically format this whole list as well. So for example, I click on this all items view and I can say that format current view, right? There are a couple of options. I can use alternating row styles, right? So I select that option. You can also click on edit row styles where you can actually choose a sample colors for this, right? So for example, I select these two colors and then click save, right? Once I click save, and let me just close this one. As I said, sometimes it just you probably need to reload this. Not sure why that's happening, but so this now creates this list with alternate row styles. So this is called formatting on this view. Or you can use conditional formatting where you can apply rules so that show all values as. So for example, if the verified by is basically is equals to let's just say I want to highlight everything where Peter Smith has verified, right? So I can say if verified by is equals to, and we just start typing the name Peter Smith. I want to list this item as blue or maybe yellow, okay? And then we click on save. So once I click on save, let me just reload it again. Then you would see that this, where Peter Smith is, this row is now highlighted as yellow. So imagine if we are working with a number of list items and you probably want to, highlight something, for example, which might be something not approved yet or not verified, or maybe perhaps it's been verified by a particular person who might be making lots of mistakes, right? So you can actually highlight using these formatting options. Right. So that was about formatting. Now, on these columns, you have different properties. So for example, if I click on verified by, I can sort this list A to Z or Z to A. I can also filter by. So, I can say, give me everything which is, verified by Peter Smith, and which then filters the whole list. I can then click on this clear filters to clear all the filters on this list. You can filter it on different columns, right? So you can combine it. You can also do group by. So for example, if I do group by, it basically puts the verified by column into it basically groups by the list as verified by column. So if I can even minimize all of these icons. So verified by, this is group by. You can also do another group by, which is from another column. So let's just say I want to do group by status. So it actually creates a group by status. Let's just say you have done your changes. When I say the changes, you have done your sorting, you have done your filtering, right? I want to sort it by A to Z, and you're happy with the group by, and perhaps you you have done your filtering as well. For example, give me everything where it was filtered on this particular date, right? So we have this filtering, you have made your changes. You can save all of these changes so that you don't have to come back again and then redo everything. What you can do is, once you're happy with the changes, you can click on this view and open this view, and you can say save view as, right? So when I say save view as, I can say you can say group by status, for example, right? So that's the view. If you don't want to make this as a public view, which means only you would have access, you can untick this option so that only you will be able to see this view. It will be more like a private view. But if you want to make it a public view, you can check this option and click save. Right? So when next time you comes in, you would see that there is actually a view, which is a group by view. You can actually just simply use, right? But if you want to create a new view altogether, you can click on this plus button and you can choose a view. When you create a view, you can also create a view as a list, which is a list view. You can also create a view as a calendar view. You can choose the default layout as a month or a week. You can choose a view as a gallery view, right? So let's just say I want to create a gallery view, right? And click create. So it actually creates a gallery view and gives you everything under just one kind of tab in a gallery view. You could also create a board view. This could be great for tracking all the issues. For example, let's just say I want to call it board view, and I click board, and it would then ask you which column you want to organize your board. I guess status column would be much handier, because doing that, it kind of gives you a Kanban kind of a board. So let's just organize it by status and see what happens. So I'm going to click create, and there you go. So it has given me a board view. So if you are familiar with using Microsoft Planner or Kanban board, this is kind of similar to that. So these are all your values, right? If you want to change any of these values within the list in a board view, all you have to do is basically just click on that option or column and change the values, and that's it. It's done for you, right? You can even drag and drop and move these boxes to different kind of status values. So it's more of like a Microsoft Planner, right? So that's the different views. And if you have large number of items, and if you want to edit those items, you can always click on edit in grid view, and all you have to do is basically click on the column and just start making your changes. And this one, I want to make this 60%. And once you are happy with all of your changes, then you click on exit grid view, and all of your information or all of your updates will be done. So this is a very handy way to update large number of items if you have, a large list. Okay. If you want to add another column, obviously you can click on add column. If you want to further, filter by, we have this filter option where it gives you all the other columns, and you can select the filtering options and it filters the list. And obviously let's just clear the filter and click by, and then we have this group by option. So if I click on group by, then it's going to ask me which field I want to group by. So let's just say I want to group by status, and it then do a group by on the whole list by the status column, which could be handy if you are just quickly playing around with the list and trying to find the information. Now once you have created your list, your views, it's time to manage the access. Okay, so I'm just going to clear the group by, and I'm just going to clear the list, come back to the list view. Right now you can manage or share items. So let's just say this is your private list item, right? If you want to share the whole list, what you can do is you can click on manage access, which is on the top right side. So once you click on manage access, it then opens up this box, right? And it basically gives you an option if you want to share with a group or if you want to share with specific people, right? So there are options for people, groups, links. So people, if you just want to share it with a person, right? So I just want to share it with Peter, and you can select Peter, and depending upon what sort of access you want to give, you can select the options, whether you want Peter to just view this item or list, or edit the list, or edit items, right? Depending upon those options, you can select this, and then you can click send. Then Peter will be basically given access to this list. If you want to share this with a group, you can share it with a group as well. If you know the group email, which could be a Microsoft 365 group, or it could be a security group from your Microsoft 365 environment, you can add that group email address, and that would then give access to those users. Those groups could be your Microsoft Teams channel groups, which in fact are Microsoft 365 groups in the background, right? But you get the idea. You can basically manage access through that. If you want to share one particular item only, you can click on hover over to the item, and then you can click on these three little dots, and then you can click on the share option, and then you can basically just follow the same option. Just start typing the name of the person that you want to share with, and once you click send, then only this particular item will be shared with that person. So there, I've created another video about manage access or sharing, which actually gives you a good overview of how this whole dialog box works. So you should, if you want to know more about these sharing options and how do you manage access once you have shared, you should definitely watch that video. I'll put a link of that video under the description of this video, so make sure you check that out, right? So that's how you do the sharing. The other options we have at the top, obviously edit in grid view. That's for bulk editing. You can share this list, right? Which is obviously we have seen through manage access, but you can click on that, which basically opens up the same dialog box, you can click on the export option and you can export this list into Excel. You can export to CSV or export to CS with schema and export to Power BI, right? So you have all of these export options. You can even create some rules. So whenever there is a new list item created, or something happens on any of those columns, you can actually get notified. So all you have to do is click on automate rules and then create a rule. And then you can select one of these options whenever the data in a column changes, or whenever a new item is created, whenever a new item is deleted, right? So you can create multiple alerts. So for example, I want to get notified when someone changes data in a column, right? And I want to then specify when the data in the verification process, or maybe within the status column, changes, right? And changes to what? Changes to anything, changes to a particular value or one of the values, or maybe not equal to option, for example, right? So in this case, I want to get notified when the status actually changes to a value which is approved. Whenever someone is approved, I want to get notified. And then you can basically enter the email address of the person who should get notified. You can select verified by, created by, modified by, or yourself. And then we have this integrate options, right? You can integrate this with PowerApps. What it means is, rather than you having this particular list view, whenever you create a new list item, when you create a new list item, you get this form, right? But you can customize this form. You can have a logo, different colors, maybe columns, all of these columns in 2 rows or 2 columns. You can do whatever you want to do. So you can use PowerApps to basically customize the forms. You can also use Power Automate. So if you want to create some more rules on this list, so what you can do is you can select Power Automate and say create a flow, right? And then these are all the created kind of templated flows that you can actually create. So which means more notifications or actions you can create on this list. You can start an approval process when a new item is created. You can basically request your manager's approval for a selected item. Or you can send a customized email when a new list item is added, right? You can click on show more. So these are all the different options, or the flows that you can actually create on all of these lists. And these are just click kind of options that you can create. So very simple to use and very easy to create, right? So that's that. And then you have alert me and manage my alerts. So alert me is kind of similar to the rules. So it basically says, what's the title of the alert, who you want to send these alerts to, and then what are the change types. You want to send alerts for new items, all changes, an alert, when to send an alert, and then when to send a summary of the alerts, right? So you can use this option as well to create alerts on this list. Well, I hope that was something useful and you learned something new today. Don't forget to check out my other videos where I have talked more about customizing PowerApps, and also to how to manage the access for the list items, that if you want to know more about. And as always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you again. Thanks for watching.